Hey guys, welcome back to FurnaceClans. Well, first things first, we've been building up top, but something has happened that I had never seen before in the fort. And in particular, you'll notice here, when I'm looking at the inventory on somebody, they have cursed dust coatings in their throats, on their back and front teeth. These are causing significant problems. What's happening is, if we go down to the hospital, where are you? Where's Autumn? There's Autumn. Autumn here, he had some in his throat. Now he's got some in his nose, upper lip, and his teeth. But you'll notice he was constantly resting an injury. He never actually stops being nauseous when he's like this. This is a problem. I'm not quite sure how we're going to deal with this yet. So just an update on the nose and throat infusion of dust. Coming over here to Autumn, who was having some trouble earlier. Apparently he got himself a drink, or he ran through the waterfall and managed to get himself cleaned up finally. He never did actually go and chill out inside the hospital, so I'm not sure. That was a mess though. Hopefully we don't run into that too often. I probably need to start making some cloth hoods and everything so that these guys don't run into problems. It would appear this new mouth-breathing fiasco has started to cause me significant issues across the board. Multiple people are getting these injuries from breathing in the dust, and they're just carrying it with them, so they never really get over the nausea. One of the things that also causes problems is down here where they tend to like to bathe. It's now currently surrounded by some dust. That's also going to cause me some problems. I'm not quite sure what we're going to be able to do about that. Oh, I got to check my supply of soap here too. But if I figure something out, I'll let you know. But right now, we're just kind of fighting through 4 or 5 dwarves at any one time, complaining and canceling jobs because they breathe in this dust and they just can't get rid of it. Now, what's interesting is if we go to Autumn, was one of my problem children earlier, he's still got his coated dust, but he's not getting ill anymore. I'm not quite sure how that is. Well, she's ecstatic at the moment, but I'm not quite sure why Autumn's able to ignore the cursed dust coating now. Maybe they get a defense against it eventually? I'm not sure. So I'm just sitting here. I got a lot of idlers right now. That's okay. We just finished up roofing over our upper service. So I'm going to start working on the cave-in to come through the 2-layer aquifer. But in the meanwhile, I've dug out a little underground roadway over here, running over to our wells and buckets, so that we wouldn't have to go upstairs at all until we can get the OMG open. It's been about 9 months since we took the OMG down, maybe 10. No, I'm sorry. It took us about 6 to 9 months to clean out the OMG and to install all of the spears. It's been about 9 months since that ended. Well, excuse me, 11 months. And we're about half done, I want to say, with hooking up the triggers. We're up to about here. We've done a couple on the other side, so we're about 50% done. It'll take us about 2 years to finish that off. But one of the things I want to do is up over here, we had trapped in a little pit 4 undead critters over here. So what I'm doing is I'm building a little fortification and passageway along with a door. The door is just there to keep the undead from getting out until we kill all 4. Because I don't remember what levers up here do what. 1 controls this, 2 control those bridges down over there. I don't remember who does what. So I'm going to park my archery squad here, the iron arrows, after this door is built. I'll have that locked. Once we kill these guys off, I will have them dump the corpses. But we're going to see if we can't clear them out from underneath rather than trying to fight our way up through the top. And with our levers being pulled, we're starting to drop our undead down. Took him out pretty quick. I'll just set him to dump as soon as we get to him. So we've got 2 of them there. This guy moved off center, apparently. So we've got a corpse and a hand still up there. This was locked. We're going to open it. We're going to have the squad move here, just to give our dumpers a little extra protection. This way, in case these guys wander down at all, we can pop them. Cloud of dust. How lovely. So we're just kind of waiting. Okay, so we took out one of these. Looks like we killed all of them, so we're just going to wait for the dumps, leave the military there until the dumps are complete, and then we'll go back to how we normally are. So having idlers out to the yin-yang, and being bored waiting for the OMG to open up again, so I can get some of the undead to move and go back to what I want to do on the surface, decided it's time to finally punch the hole into the area that I opened up above, as well as drop the plug through the aquifer so that I can get a decent stairway going here. Now, I'm going to change this a bit. So, as I go through this, over here on the right, you should see a handy-dandy surface, soil 1, soil 2, aquifer 1, aquifer 2 indicator. Now, I'll try and match them to the colors. As you can see, soil 1 is red sand, soil 2 is a sandy clay, aquifer 1 and 2 is a sandy clay and yellow sand. So what we're doing here is, this is soil 2, and we'll start on soil 1. You notice it basically just digging out the plug area. It's got a channel to go down all the way around the plug. I'm going to drop a 5x5 plug. We're going to dig across the top of it, and we're going to leave a floor here. Below that, right here, is soil 2. We're going to dig a 2-wide down stairway. This is mostly for convenience. You could, in theory, do this 1-wide, depending on how much you trust your miners. And we're going to chicken run a drain plug in here, somewhere. So while these guys dig it out, I'll bring you back. Now, obviously, typically, you'd be doing a dig like this when you don't have a lot of experienced miners. You want to make sure that you've at least got them up to A, which is level 10. I'm only going to allow my Z miners to be active here while I finish this dig out. And I will turn these guys back on later. This is just in self-defense. 007B was my other miner. Okay. Now, we've still got them digging around up here, so we'll let them finish the clear out up there. Because I want my miner to be committed to the process. And in particular, we're going to see if we can't get Edge to do it. So we're going to turn off a couple of things on him. So I've turned off all of Edge's tasks except for mining. Obviously there's a couple he'll always try and do. But in general, we're going to try and keep him just on mining. And we're going to let this top of this plug dig out. Now, one of the reasons I want to try and use Edge for this is this. They're agile. Agile and very agile has to do with how fast your dwarves will run. I need them to throw themselves basically into the stairway as quickly as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to dig an up-down stairway over here in the corner to try and start our drain plug, and we're going to see if we can't chicken run into it. So we'll just wait for a miner to get down there. Okay, now that he's here, we're going to hit period through this section so that we can try and get him into the stairway while it's still dry to dig another up-down just below it as a drain for this level. Now, as you can see, we're already up to a 1-7 there. Okay, what happens is at 4-7 they get kicked out. Still at 1-7. We're up to 2-7. We're at 3-7. We may not make this one. Oh, you got it. Okay, so now with that done, you'll notice that this square now is dry, and it's draining down here, and it's draining out into the aquifer. Now from here, let me go turn on my miners, because now it's just a matter of digging the stairways. And you want to do this in kind of a very particular pattern, because what happens is, if you don't, you end up fighting the water flow if you dig out all of Aquifer 1 without digging down into Aquifer 2 as well. So we've got some miners here, and as you can see, we've got a little bit of water that's starting to flow on top of the stairways here until they dig out the drainage ditches underneath. And then from here, I'm just going to dig out in a little pattern. And little by little we'll dig this out. Now normally you would only do this with a single miner when you first start up a new embark and you're trying to pierce it for the first time. But once you've gotten that first chicken run done, you're home free. There's not a lot of concern with how long it takes you to do this. So being cautious and slow and taking a couple extra days before you pierce through it, just to make sure you're not fighting the environment, is definitely a wise plan. Now you'll notice one of the things I'm doing here is I'm digging through 2 layers at once. It's just, if you hit DI and you're digging your up-down stairways, and you'll notice, okay, so here I'm on Aquifer 2. I come down 1 and up 1 to Aquifer 1, and I can tell it to dig through 4 blocks at once. Very similar to just driving your deep shafts for stairways when you first get into a location. Now you can get a little ambitious with it, but don't go too nuts. And then you're just building out all the way around this 5-way plug. And then what I'll do is I'll show you how to deal with that. So I'll bring it back once we get through this section of the Aquifer dig. So with our up-downs dug, you should have something that looks like this. This is Aquifer 2, and then Aquifer 1. I dug this a little poorly. Yeah, I dug a 6x6 plug instead of a 5x5. Whoops. So, well, that's easily dealt with. Just dig some downward stairways through here. And I'll bring it back when I fix this. So, trying that again, you'll notice I now have a 5x5 plug. I was wondering what my setup for my burrow was off. It starts here on soil 2. Soil 1, it's completely disconnected. Here on soil 2, we're now going to do the exact same thing. So we're going to channel out around the plug on soil 2. Once that gets dug out, we'll start working down on Aquifer 1. With soil 2 now having the plug completely disconnected, now we need to make sure it's not held up by anything down here on Aquifer 1. So we're going to turn these up-down stairs into straight-down stairways. We turn them into up-downs at first just for convenience, but at this point we're just going to completely disattach them from the upper level so that this plug will fall. Then we're going to have to dig out underneath the plug. Now, digging out underneath the plug requires the drop point to actually be channeled out, not just have stairways or missing information. So we're going to actually have to channel into that area. To be able to do that, though, without getting flushed out, gets to be interesting. Because what happens is if you channel around the outside, well, obviously you can't get at anything. And if you're trying to do this with no materials used, you don't want to build a floor. You could recover the log, but why worry about it? So what we're going to do is, for a 5x5, it takes a little trickery. Now, if you're just doing a 3x3, you can pretty much just dig in and run around the outside. But in this case, I'm just waiting for this to get dug out, so bring it back in a second. Oh, nope, it's done. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to dig into the center so that we can get access to it. Now, what will happen is we'll get a decent amount of water flowing out here and down into these drain pipes, but it should be enough that we can get through it. Okay, now that I have a miner here, he's going to start digging in. Okay, you notice he located some damp stone, so my pre-build here wasn't really helpful. And now we're going to dig out the center 3. While he's standing in a decent amount, some water. He's getting blown back a bit, but he should be able to dig through it. Now you notice I already got one channel there, over here on the left side. I mean, you will get dangerous terrain complaints here, but eventually you'll be able to dig in. like so. And now we're just going to channel out the rest of that inner area, because those channels we dug will help act as drains for the inner portion of the aquifer that's draining water around, so it'll be quicker now. Believe it or not, this actually goes a lot faster when you've got a single miner dedicated to the task. And what we're going to do is now we're going to channel out those inner stairways. And we can also start channeling away at the outer walls. And once they take those stairways out, we don't need this layer anymore. Okay, now here on Aquifer 1, we've dug out where our plug's going to land. Down here on Aquifer 2, we have our landing site. We've confirmed that the plug has no connection here on Soil 2, which leaves just this last little piece here on Soil 1 to drop down. And voila! We have a cave-in. Remember, you have to make sure you have cave-ins on for this. Lots of scattered water going all over the place. Lots of mist. But now, if we look down here on Aquifer 2, we've got a nice plug. Aquifer 1 is good. So now we just dig an up-down stairway down to where we want it. Actually, I'm going to dig an up-down there and up here. And then I'll connect it over to my bathing, which I'll show you here shortly. But we're also, we need to dig some downward stairways here so they can get at it. Now this is surface, so they'll be able to just climb down the stairs and get at this area. And that'll get us through to our stone layers. So, just so everything's on the up and up, you can find this technique laid out by Stochastic and Snake on the single pick challenge thread that's associated with this video series. They perfected it down from needing a bucket to needing a pump to, from needing a pump to needing a bucket to one point just needing a floor, and eventually I believe it was Snake who finalized this technique to where all you need was a pick. And you're never even exposed to surface, if you'll notice. I never touched the surface and never needed to. This trick only works on 2-layer aquifers. It's pretty simple to cave in through a single-layer aquifer. So that's not as big a deal. You probably would have to cut surface for it unless you have 3 layers of soil, so you got to play it by ear. But you can, instead of having to chicken run down to Aquifer 2 for drainage, you just do all your work on Soil 1, 2, and 3. Drop the plug from Soil 2 down into Aquifer 1, and you're through. I have an idea of how I might be able to get through a 3-layer or more layer aquifer this way, but I have to go find one and play with it, and I haven't found any place with 3 or more layers of aquifer that's consistent for me to be able to toy around with. If anybody has one like that, or finds one that's not in version 40, but in 34.11, let me know. Chuck it up on DFFD for me, please. And I'll see if I can't figure out a way to punch through 3 or more layers. So that's how to do that, and we're going to go take care of my fort for a bit, and I'll bring you back for the next interesting bit.